an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Shambolic, embarrassing, teetering on the brink. Just some of the words overheard emanating from Labour's shadow cabinet meeting. The decision to hand his MPs a free vote is a complete U-turn for Jeremy Corbyn, who articulated his implacable opposition to military action just this weekend. While Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon declared that a party supposedly against airstrikes had just made them a whole lot more likely. Let's go live now to our political editor, Gary Gibbon, in Westminster. Gary.
Well, Diane Abbott, one of Jeremy Corbyn's allies, was one of the forces trying to organise a sort of pushback on behalf of Jeremy Corbyn over the last few days, going into studios and saying a free vote would be handing David Cameron victory in the vote that's expected still Wednesday this week. Well, it looks like that's exactly what Labour have done. The pushback didn't quite work. Jeremy Corbyn and his allies tried to email the supporters they now have in their many thousands in seats across the country, try and get them to pile in, put pressure on the MPs. But in the end, it was the MPs who attended the shadow cabinet meeting today who probably kiboshed Jeremy Corbyn's attempts at a pushback. They came into the room, he presented them with a plan. It was tweeted by a newspaper while they were sitting there. That all added to the fury of a very acrimonious meeting. Here's how Jeremy Corbyn's latest day with his own party went.
Mr Corbyn, morning. Will you be allowing your MPs a free vote?
He tried to resist that. He wanted to make his opposition to airstrikes on Syria party policy. But his shadow ministers bit back.
Will you allow your MPs a free vote?
Actually very rude the way you behave. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Climate change as an issue.
Over the weekend, while Mr Corbyn attended a climate change rally, his top team tried to take on the supporters of military attacks in his own party, even though they include big figures in his own shadow cabinet. When he met his top team this afternoon, Jeremy Corbyn said Labour policy was now to oppose airstrikes, but they were free to vote against it. Andy Burnham said giving a free vote, but saying people who take up that offer are breaching party policy, could leave MPs vulnerable to attack from Corbyn-supporting activists. You can't throw people to the wolves, he said. Hilary Benn, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, said he would speak from the back benches if he wasn't able to support party policy from the front benches. So party policy remains the rather ambiguous motion passed at Labour conference. Jeremy Corbyn says that effectively means Labour opposes war. Hilary Benn says it doesn't. Both will speak for the Labour Party in the debate in the Commons expected Wednesday, proposing different views. Jeremy Corbyn decided that was better than mass resignations.
I imagine that the leadership looked at this and saw the very strongly held and publicly expressed views on both sides and realised that it would have been impossible to keep the shadowed cabinet together while imposing a whip against military intervention.
David Cameron, when he gets back from the climate change conference in Paris tonight, will probably announce he's going ahead with the vote. But just how big a majority he gets will depend on the number of Labour rebels. He's got 20 votes from the smaller parties, including the Democratic Unionists and the Liberal Democrats. And he's probably got 315 or so of his total 330 Tory MPs. Jeremy Corbyn will oppose the attacks alongside the SNP, the Green Party, Plaid Cymru. He could have around 15 Tory rebels with him. If 100 Labour MPs desert him and support military strikes, nearly half his MPs, the government would win with a massive majority. If 60 Labour MPs rebel, the government's majority could be nearly 150. If just 30 of them rebel, as some Corbyn aides suggest, the government's majority could still be more than 80.
Do you conclude from that airstrikes are now more likely rather than less likely?
Yeah, I think it's very likely if Labour are giving a free vote on this. What's important, however, is that the debate and the discussion is properly informed and is a proper length.
A vote authorising attacks by British tornadoes and other forces on so-called Islamic State targets in Syria could come as early as Wednesday, with military strikes very soon after that. Well, I've just come from standing outside the weekly meeting of Labour MPs, Parliamentary Labour Party. It's a moot point whether that engagement or when he meets his shadow cabinet is Jeremy Corbyn's least favourite moment in the week. There was big applause for Hilary Benn when he spoke in the room, not much for Jeremy Corbyn. One member of the front bench team messaged me very kindly from inside to say that Jeremy Corbyn was delivered a vacuous student rant, and Hilary Benn gave a tour de force. If it had been a boxing match, it would have been stopped in the first round. I'm told Margaret Beckett in the room said, "It is very hard to unite the party when the leader's office is trying to divide it." Margaret Beckett, a very esteemed figure in the Labour Party, someone who nominated Jeremy Corbyn. People around Jeremy Corbyn feel that because they pushed back over these last few days, they actually are squeezing down the number of Labour rebels. We'll find out whether they're right, probably on Wednesday.
Gary, thank you very much. Well, while the politicians are in disarray over possible action in Syria, there are some whose voices have been somewhat drowned out by the Westminster rows, and that's the Syrians themselves. Amid the row over David Cameron's claim there are 70,000 moderate rebels inside Syria, civilians there are still being killed, and many in Russian air raids and the bombs dropped by President Assad's troops. Our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson, has been talking to some Syrians living here to find out what they think.
It is not Raqqa or Aleppo or even Damascus, South London, where we've come to hear from Syrians who know most about Syria, but whose voice is heard least. So as argument rages about David Cameron and his 70,000 moderates ready to rise up against IS in Syria, what do Syrians themselves actually think? Do they think that's credible? Do they think these are even the questions we should be asking? Do they think this is anything like the right road to be going down with regard to their country now and in the future? Khalid, Adel and Muzna, three Syrians united in telling David Cameron IS is not the real problem. Bashar al-Assad is.
Mr. Cameron's position is very much that we should bomb IS. What do you think of that?
But certainly the bombing of IS will not solve anything for the Syrians or for the world or for Europe or for Britain. It will not make Britain safer. It will not make Britain's feeling more secure. And it will certainly add to the tragedy of Syria and will kill more civilians.
All three accuse Britain of losing sight of the real enemy as they see it.
You're sounding like Assad is the problem, not ISIS.
Of course Assad is the problem. This is one of the problems in Britain. They are talking about Syria the wrong way. They are discussing the wrong question, and they are not really listening to Syrians. What we want them to hear us when we say we are in the front lines of fighting ISIS and fighting Assad. When Syrians say Assad is the problem, listen to us.
From Khaled, unless the UK has a clear plan beyond bombing ISIS, don't bomb at all.
If we can't solve the problem, better not step into that at all. I mean, I don't see the point in the British getting their hands dirty with this type of work that is mission unclear, and it will keep on creeping forever.
What should the priority be? If you were the British Prime Minister, what would you make your priority in Syria, if not bombing IS or indeed not bombing Assad?
The priority is to start a strategy to end the whole crisis. And the ending of the whole crisis starts with removing the Assad regime, because it is the one who...
Not IS.
Not IS, definitely. IS will be dealt with by the Syrians once the Assad regime is gone.
I think the West don't care about the Syrian people. I think our blood is cheap. They only cared because the problem comes knocking on their doors when the refugees come or when France happened. We are not significant. We've been dying for 5 years. People are dying right now in detention centers. We need people. I don't know what to say.
One family and friends, and just one strand of opinion, of course. But across suburban Britain, as across Syria, many will say that bombing IS is not much of a plan and certainly not the right target. Alex Thompson, Channel 4 News, South London.
And Clive Lewis, Shadow Energy Minister, who's against airstrikes, joins us now from the House of Commons. Clive Lewis, last week Jeremy Corbyn said categorically that he wouldn't offer a free vote. Even yesterday he insisted that the party would come to a collective decision. Now this, I mean, really his authority appears to be in some disarray.
I think first thing to say is today's decision, the decisions of this week are about Syria. That for me is the key issue, not the internal machinations of the Labour Party. I understand they're important because those formulate the decisions we come to. Ultimately, a decision has been made. It is for a free vote. It's what I wanted. It's what many people in the party, especially in the PLP, wanted tonight.
But it's not what your leader wanted.
Jeremy made a statement last week. I didn't actually hear it myself. Jeremy made that statement that he wanted it. He's listened to the shadow cabinet. He's listened to the PLP, and
he's refused to lead them.
He and the shadow cabinet have made a decision.
But he's refused to lead them. I mean, a leader persuades by sheer force of personality. He's given in, hasn't he?
Well, some leaders persuade by sheer force of personality, and I think in our party we've had a top-down command and control system. We've talked to our members, we've sent out surveys to our members, we've tried to gauge the opinion of the members. It feels that many of them are opposed to the war, and yet we understand this is an issue of conscience, and we're being given a free vote. I think that's right. I think after coming out of the PLP tonight, that most people think going to war is a matter of conscience. I think it's the right decision.
But when you have Stop the War tweeting that pro-war Labour MPs are now following Blair and undermining Corbyn, how do you think shadow cabinet members will be treated by the grassroots?
Well, first of all, Jeremy Corbyn isn't the leader of Stop the War. He's the leader of the Labour Party. I would say to any members who may become slightly exuberant in their tweets or abusive or aggressive in their tweets, Jeremy Corbyn and the shadow cabinet have made the decision to give a free vote. Respect that. Respect members who are looking at this using their hearts, their mind, their soul, their intellect to come to this position, and respect it. You might not agree with it, but if you believe in anything about Jeremy and his new style of politics, then accept what people are doing if they've come to that conclusion under fair circumstances.
Clive Lewis, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us.
I've been